Hello, everybody. Welcome to Native Paranormal Crossroads. This is our weekly event on a Wednesday. It is our 23rd episode, and tonight I'm joined by Michelle Miners from the Paranormal Rangers, Jonathan Dover from the Paranormal Rangers, Andrew Bartzitz, the Galactic Historian, and my partner in crime, Dale Tobin.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here again.
So, how are we all doing, guys?
Doing great.
Wonderful.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.
So it's the month, July is the month of the Sasquatch, isn't it?
It is.
That's what we're doing. So we're without our special guest, unfortunately, but Jonathan has been away and done something paranormal wise. So before we get on to Bigfoot and our experiences and so on, do you want to tell us about that, Jonathan?
Sure. Just so everybody knows out there, Stan cannot make it today. He is currently in the studio working on the audio portion of his book. He's got some parts to do on there, narration wise. So he's going to be very busy for the next week. Anyway, both me and Stan met with our friend Steve, and we went up Canyon de Chelly and Canyon del Muerto at the Canyon de Chelly National Monument located outside of Chinle, Arizona. We were there specifically to see if there were any paranormal things going on. Excuse me. Stan had previously gone down there, and he was at the overlook at Massacre Cave. He said that him and his friend heard screaming and gunshots from down in the canyon, like a fusillade of gunfire. And this is in an area where the Spanish had trapped a bunch of Navajos in a cave, and what they did is they couldn't shoot directly at them, so they started ricocheting the rounds off the walls of the cave and hitting the people behind the deal. So this, I guess there was just all kinds of dead people there. And what Stan's believing is that he heard a remnant of what was going on. So that's why we went into the canyon to get close and see if there was anything there. In doing so, we had two separate incidences. The first one is that Stan woke up with a bright light outside of his tent. Now, we don't like each other that much and we snore voraciously. So we tend to put our tents pretty far apart from each other.
Waking each other up.
Yeah. And so Stan is sleeping and he gets woke up by this pretty bright light outside of his tent. And as he looks out, he sees a white orb flying near his tent and just hovering there. And he says that it's about the size of a golf ball. And by the time he focused on it, it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So that one happened. The next morning, he comes to me and he says, a coin fell in my tent. Now, those of you that know Stan know that he did an investigation where coins were showing up. And this thing followed him home, and ever since then, he's had coins dropping. Well, we've always had this private joke between us. Send us a 1943 copper penny because they're worth a lot of money. For everybody, the background to this is that in World War II, all the pennies were being made out of steel, which are magnetic. if you find a copper 1943 wheat cent, it can be worth a lot of money because just maybe 1,000 of them were made. So he shows up at the camp area for breakfast. He shows me a coin, and it's a 1943 wheat cent, and it's not light colored, it's dark copper colored. And so I says, well, it's about time. And then he put it back in his pocket. We went on with eating breakfast and whatever else we were doing and planning our day. As we got to the end of the day and I had forgotten about it because these things happen all the time, I asked Stan, I says, hey, where's that penny? I've got a magnet in my car. Let's test it. He reaches into the same pocket he put it in earlier in the day, pulls out the penny and hands it to me. I looked at it. It is now a 1974 penny. And so I just said, oh, well, I says, uh, the spirits are just, jerking us around and having fun with us. Um, but that's not the first time a coin has changed appearance for us. So it wasn't that unusual to us.
Wow.
And
God,
then,
that's an
and
incredible
then
story.
while we were on the trip, we were at White House Ruins. I almost forgot. And we were near the cliff face. It's about maybe 600 or 700 feet up. And as we were standing there, we heard this really distinct humming sound. And it didn't vary too much in pitch. It warbled a little bit, but it was there. And it
Mhm.
was really distinct. And we kept moving around. Some places the sound would kind of disappear, some places it was louder. We followed the sound as best we could back to a whole bunch of Park Service restrooms.
Hmm.
And on the restrooms, there were these solar powered fans on top. There were four restrooms. So all these fans were going at the same time. Together, they created that vibration and that sound, and we were able to pinpoint it and disprove that that was anything paranormal.
And that's, you had said earlier that was the source of the mystery that you were referring to.
Yeah, we had a mystery, and as Clouseau would say, the case is salved. So
So,
Interesting.
Jonathan, when was your first like penny disappearing experience? You know, the first time it ever happened. Was there any like intention behind it, or was it just kind of a mystical moment where you're like, "Holy shit, what's this appeared for?"
well, the other time it occurred, we were speaking at the Star Works conference in Laughlin, Nevada, and as we're, we try to tell people, hey, just book us one room as long as it's got two beds because we don't like each other that much. Um, you know, we had a room with two beds, and we're kicking back for the day. We're exhausted after speaking, and the next day we're leaving. And as we're laying there, I looked over on the nightstand in the middle between us, and there's a quarter. And I turned to Stan and I said, are you messing around with my head? And he says, no, honest. He says, I'm not doing anything. And I picked up the quarter and looked at it. It was one of those state quarters that
Mhm.
had the Georgia peach on the back. And I showed it to him. He looked at it. He gave it back. I put it exactly where it was, face up on the, heads up on the nightstand, and left it there and forgot about it. Went to sleep. Uh, we have so many coins showing up. It doesn't even grab our attention too much anymore. And the next day we were getting packed up, and as I'm ready to roll my roller out of the room, I said, "Oh man," I says, the coin. And I went over there and picked it up. I looked at it and I said, "Stan, are you messing with me?" And he looked at me and he says, "What? I didn't touch it." The quarter was now a Texas state quarter.
It's crazy.
And we have no explanation for it. It's just that that kind of stuff happens. And Stan said that a couple of them have changed on him before like that.
Wow.
So obviously a
Do
trickster.
they do the same thing with keys?
I don't know. I wish
Car
I'd lose my car keys and go outside and find the car keys for a Porsche. But
Ferrari.
yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'll probably
I've had that experience. I had lost my car keys, and I have a friend. She's has psychic abilities, and I called her up and I said, "Hey, I'm missing some keys," and these were a pretty big chain of keys. As you know, I have a lanyard and I have a bunch of keys on it. I lost that. How do you lose something that big? So, anyways, I asked her, I said, "Do you have any idea where it could be? Could you just feel it out?" She goes, "Put your hand right out." And I go, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, put your hand out. Are you in your bedroom closet looking?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." All of a sudden I put my hand out and they dropped right into my hand. I couldn't believe it. Out of thin air. And I was like, "Thanks." But I couldn't believe it happened. So maybe,
well,
like you said, a trickster, right? Wanted to take car keys, but I did have that experience.
yeah. I have to be careful because
We only
I lost my keys one time. I looked all over the house, looked everywhere I had been, looked everywhere, couldn't find them. I was so frustrated, I just started heading out the door. I looked down. My keys were in my hand the whole time. Never opened the door. I'm sorry, nothing mysterious there.
No dropping from thin air,
I think
right?
that's just age.
That's quite a common experience I've had.
Yes, yes, often.
Yeah.
Andrew, are you
I'm
there? Have you got a delay or are you with us?
Yeah, I got a really
He's dealing with the storm.
bad delay. I remember one time my mom was like, "Where am
Yes, on your head.
The head, the above the head scenario.
Erica
Oh, I
would like to
apologize.
know, Andrew, what is your, I guess that's take, what is your take on the coin spirit? He knows you know. Um,
does the coin matter?" I think just the interaction itself is a proof of communication.
mm,
And then there's an exchange of G. Each step they go a little further and a little further. As for what, I think Jonathan hit it nail on the head. It's a trickster energy. They have fun. Imagine being a spirit and you're trying to talk to humans all the time and they can't hear your ass, and you figure out a coin trick. You're going to do it everywhere you go, wouldn't you?
yes, yes, yeah.
I'll keep waiting for that 43 copper to show up and stay here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you got to say is, "Hey, I need a St. Gaudens double eagle from 1864." That's a $10,000
That's
coin.
right.
Yeah. Have
It's
you
funny.
and Stan able to identify your source of what, who it is? Because I know our focus is on Sasquatch. Could it be some type of paranormal type of spirit? I mean, have you even thought about that between you
This
two?
the coin thing started occurring directly after Stan did an investigation on a building in Window Rock, Arizona. It was an office
Okay.
building that had been
Right.
plagued with hauntings. And that thing, basically, what they call the hitchhiker effect, it followed
Right.
him home and it's been with him ever since.
Well, I would like to address this. When we went on our little thing with Steve recently last month, I've had some trickster things going on in my house as well. And I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I know you're there. Like little things will be go missing for a second and then they'll be right in front of me.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we'll have to blame Steve. So,
So Steve might be the catalyst.
I think sometimes they just do things to try and get our attention as well.
Yeah,
I'm sure I've been tripped up and many things like that. Nothing really destructive, nothing really negative, as you
no,
say. Just a bit of fun. And
right,
eventually, what is it I'm supposed to remember? What is it you want to tell me?
right.
What's going on
What's
here?
the message? Yeah, I asked that.
although we did have a friend of ours in down at in Phoenix at a conference, and he felt the auditorium had cleared out, and there was nobody else in there. Him and another guy were talking, face to face, with a row of seats between them, and he felt a coin hit him in the side of the leg.
Oh,
The he wears cowboy boots, so it hit him in the side of the boot. So he just felt a coin hit him, and he looked all around, saw a coin on the floor, reached down, picked it up, put it in his pocket, didn't think anything more. Kept talking, another coin hit him in the leg. Now he's really looking around. There's nobody else in the auditorium. Reaches down, puts it in his pocket, contacts me and Stan later, and he's freaked out. He had been listening to Colonel Halt talk about the Rendlesham Force incident.
right.
And as they were discussing what Colonel Halt had been talking about during his lecture, these coins hit him in the side of the leg, on his left leg. When he got with us, he showed us the coins. Both of them were British £1 coins.
Mm,
So how does a British coin end up in the U.S.? You know, and they're worth more than $1. So but we told our friend, his name is Jim. We told him that put them in a frame and put them on your wall, and you'll always have something to remember this by.
Yes. Beautiful.
a little bit of
Andrew,
humor.
Andrew's got a massive lightning storm going on, you said, Andrew. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
And their power faded in and out a couple times. Played.
A little
Tiny
bit,
bit.
tiny
Teeny
bit.
bit.
Yeah, not much. Not
All right.
much.
Well, meanwhile, back at the ranch,
Yes.
are we ready to talk about Sasquatch?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We are.
Laura and Dale, you guys had a really interesting experience. So if you'd like to share your experiences, as we were talking earlier.
Yeah, I'll start. So
Yeah.
yesterday I woke up to a Sasquatch staring at me, and this Sasquatch had huge, like oval eyes, like massive long oval eyes, and it was looking at me as I woke. And I went downstairs, and it was raining here a lot, and we were like, right, what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna go for the dog walk? And I was like, well, it's raining. Then all of a sudden, Laura said, let's go to that Sasquatch place. And I knew innately she knew where we were going, so I didn't have to ask her or tell her what I saw.
He hadn't
So
told me about his dream, about what you woke up to.
that's it. So
Yeah.
we drove. What was the place called, Laura, where we went?
That's a Goodwood.
Goodwood, yeah.
Goodwood.
So I'm going to put a picture up now of what we saw, some of the things we saw.
There's
So
lots of these.
lots of these. So as we got to Goodwood, we went to the first one, and me and Laura sat down with the dogs, and all of a sudden it was like this huge high frequency hit me and Laura, and we're looking at each other and we're like, holy shit, can you feel that? And
Yeah.
as I felt around that like construct, I could see a realm going, I'd say about 30 feet all around that part. And as we went from each part, Laura, do you want to add anything to this? Then there's this as well. This is Laura sat down, and that place, as we went to that Pacific one, it felt like a nursery. There was like a nursery frequency going on, and to the left of that there was a small baby like construct, so it was
Yeah.
where the children were. So as you can see, you zoom into that photo, you can see a Sasquatch. It's pretty, can you see there? So that's zoomed in into the background, you can see its face, and you can see it's like, yeah. And Andrew said he saw little babies as well, so I really need to look into that. Laura, do you want to add anything to that?
No, just that, yeah, there were two. The first one we sat in where we really got hit with the energies, there were just two nice little stumps, tree stumps to sit on. And we'd taken some tobacco to do some offerings. We did prayers because that's the way we operate. And the frequency just increased. We didn't feel it as much, and I think we sat in two others, or at least one other, didn't we, Dale? But
Yeah.
maybe we just got more attuned. But the whole place just felt very healing. It's somewhere I've been many, many times and done ceremony there. So I feel like I am welcomed by the ancestors. But there was, often you take the photos and you don't see it with the naked eye. And then when you get home, as you know, and you look at the photos, you see other things. So this, we thought would be the where they've sharpened their sharpen themselves on the tree. We don't know. I don't
So
know whether it's,
what I spoke to Andrew about this, and he
yeah.
was saying that that's like bark and that's sap coming down, and what they do there is they claw the tree. So what they'll do is come back and harvest the wood. So they'll create insertions, Andrew was saying, and all of a sudden they'll come back and start taking off the bark and using it,
And the
which was
sap.
interesting. Andrew, sap, sorry, yeah,
They
yeah.
take the sap. They
Anything you
harvest the
want?
sap first. They harvest the sap first, and wherever the slash marks are, take the bark out too, and then use it for some other type of tincture, tea, medicine.
I mean, it's difficult to think what else could have caused such deep indentations. People walking through the woods aren't carrying anything really you wouldn't have thought that could do something like that or would.
How about an elk? Um,
We have deer. We don't have
you
elk.
don't have the elks. The elks
In the
still rub up
UK,
against
in
the.
the UK,
No, deer.
No elks. Scotland there is, but not England. Just something to add here. So as I walked into the woods, I could see Sasquatches behind trees really fast as I scanned the forest. So as I
Mhm.
got there straight away, I could see them coming in and out behind trees. And what I felt was, so as we went to each and every part of these constructs, it felt to me that it was like a hub of interconnectivity. So each and every part had tunnels between them connecting to each and every point. And what there was, we were like thinking, where's this center hub? And Laura asked straight away, and what did they say to you, Laura?
They said it's not where you think it is. So we thought it would be like in the middle of the woods with all these round the outside. But they just said it's not where you think it is. So I'm not necessarily sure I know, unless it's underground.
Yes. And there was a point this morning as well. So as I woke up this morning, I saw one of the places me and Laura visited, and I saw myself with loads of little baby Sasquatches. So I saw an image of myself stood on one of the constructs, and there was loads of little tiny Sasquatches to either side of me, just kind of saying that.
It's a cool place.
Yeah.
Does it feel like a sacred energy there?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Each and every part, each and every location, and kind of those like dens or whatever they are, had a different frequency to it. So there was like one part you could tell there was like a healing chamber. So I could see like a kind of hospital energy of where they go to recover or where they go to get healed. So there was a point as well where each and every construct has a stump which has been cut. So every single, like to the left and to the right of the constructs, there was always a cut tree. So every single one of them had two cut trees or one cut tree. So there was always like a seat in there as well, which I found really interesting.
Yeah. So we sent these pictures, as we've told Michelle, to Mike Patterson, who was the guest last week, who's a real expert on Bigfoot. And he said it certainly looks like one of their structures, and it's a good sign of possible activity in the area, which we were really excited about. And especially as I've walked those woods many, many times over the years and done a lot of ceremony locally, because I was very drawn to the place. It was really good to get the expert view and know that what we were intuiting was good. Was Bigfoot. Sorry.
And the synchronicity of obviously Michelle and you guys setting up the Sasquatch month to all of that happening
Yeah.
before the show to be like, they're like, just, hi guys.
Yeah, I
wow.
think it's wonderful. Not a coincidence, but that this group has probably have that frequency, because when I was there up in Toronto with John and Stan, and then seeing that brief shadow, like you were talking about, Dale, you were talking about seeing them just come in and come out. That's what I saw as well.
Like really fast, like
Really
literally
quick.
in and out, different trees, like hi bye.
Yeah, because they're
Yeah.
interdimensional, and and then expressing to the people I was talking to, did you see him? Did you see that big guy? And they're like, no, like I'm seeing things, But then you have to say, okay, this is a great experience in its sense, but we'd like to interact with them.
So, Michelle, what was your first experience with them then? What was like the setup for it when you had a first encounter of them?
I was up in the Uinta Basin and visiting. We were with a group with Dwayne Ollinger in a group, and we had a guy by the name of Brad, and Brad called him in with a wooden block, and he had a kind of a stick thing and made a noise, kind of. He was tapping a code thing, come out, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, Michelle, look up. And there was a female Sasquatch, and he called her Luna. He goes, I'm calling Luna in. And then I guess later on when he contacted her, she wanted me to come and sit with the family. And of course, not knowing the situations that I do now know about the reverence of these beings, and who they really are, there was that fear. I don't want to go sit with a bunch of Sasquatches. That was my initial, there is a fear involved when you haven't had those experiences, but I'm not afraid anymore. And I think it's wonderful that you and Laura had that experience, and everybody seems to be having certain things happening in their lives with, Jonathan and Stan going on their investigation recently.
Well, last week's show was a pinnacle for me, and kind of like how
Mhm.
exceptional those noises were. I was like, holy fuck! It definitely woke something in me. I was like, I was showing my brother as well, and the dog next to me, my nan's dog. The look he had when he heard it, like he looked so happy when he could hear the Sasquatch. And
Yeah.
he's a traumatized greyhound from Ireland, so he's been rescued, so he's got a lot of trauma. But when he heard the Sasquatch, it looked like it gave him so much healing, and like he had such a calmness about him. And I was like, holy fuck! I was like,
Well, we all walked away feeling kind of healed and happy
yes.
and very complete last week. Jonathan, I'm sorry you were doing a cool investigation, but that was a really cool show. And but we all kind of left feeling healed. I
Yeah.
did too. I did too.
I would have preferred that to what I was doing. For everybody out there, and hello to Farmington, New Mexico. One of the guys from Navajo is watching, so shout out there. Um, I have done so much camping in my career that I absolutely hate to camp now. Get me a pillow top bed in a hotel room, I'll be fine. Um, but you haven't lived until you've woke up with a snake laying next to you,
Oh my goodness.
or woken up, in the morning and had 10 inches of snow on top of your sleeping bag. So yeah, I'm,
That.
I'm I'm over it, you know. But at
Yeah,
any rate, yeah, we camped out for 2 nights, 3 days, or was it 3 nights? I don't remember. It just seemed like I stayed there forever one day, and and it was hot. It was
I can
really, really
imagine.
hot. So we didn't have a single cloud over the top of us the entire time.
No
So,
breeze, huh?
yeah, and a lot of dust. So when we got
Yeah.
done, I think I got home. I took 2 showers and I crawled into my bed with the air conditioner right on me, and I was happy.
Well, we're glad you're back safely and had some positive experiences.
Have you
Uh,
have you heard of glamping before, Jonathan?
What's that?
Have you heard of glamping in America? Is that something you guys have over there?
Uh,
yes.
yeah, we've had that in the past.
Yeah.
Um, our investigations involve people that were frightened. Um, in the biggest case we had, over 30 people reported seeing a Bigfoot along the river and reported it. The police, laughed at them and basically told the press, um, "I wonder how much these people have had to drink." Ha 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 ha! And which wasn't really cool. So the people said we're not having anything to do with the police department, and they called the Rangers. We spent, you know, 3 days and 2 nights doing nighttime surveillance with forward-looking infrared systems and night vision goggles, and um, we came out with foot track evidence and evidence where one had picked up a waterlogged log in a bog area that was half buried in the mud. Picked this thing up like a toy and just threw it to the side. Um, we came out with hair samples and the barbed wire that were caught there. Um, and this thing was stepping over 5-strand barbed wire, just like you'd step over a little bitty tiny picket fence around your garden. So there was a lot of good evidence there, um, and people had close up contact with it in a couple of cases, almost running into the thing close up. So um,
And didn't you send the hair for analysis and it came back as unknown?
yeah, we sent the hair off. We had a Bigfoot expert with us named Reed, and the hair came back unknown carnivore. Um, which is really unusual because the database contains millions of DNA samples from all around the world of every kind of animal you can think of. And for them to come up with something that says unknown is ridiculous. Um, if it was an ape, it should have been in there. So we have no explanation as to what it was, other than we did collect quite a number of hair samples, and some of them we still have.
So there's a question for you.
Hmm.
Does the panel have any thoughts on why we don't see any larger group of Bigfoot? Largest we may see as a small, most we'll see as a small family. I wonder if they're solitary mammals like bears.
From what I heard up at the conference with Judy Sakinal's conference, they're based on frequencies, and they can sense a person frequencies. Are they wanting to really interact with these cryptids, and are we willing to interact with them on a peaceful level, because they're healers according to the Cree nations and the First Nations up there. They appear only to heal. They want to heal. They want to communicate. Like Mike has that frequency. Tom has that frequency. Your friend Deborah, and unfortunately, their schedules didn't allow them to be here today, unforeseen circumstances. But they will be on Tom will be on our show next Wednesday. He got stuck in an area and it was on a flight. So Tom, we hope you're safe, and we've enjoyed Mike being on the show. And however Debbie's doing, we'll have her on a future show as well. So I think that they are better equipped to share their thoughts on the Bigfoot and why they're solitary. And part of it is to protect their species, I do believe, is what I heard from Judy and her panelist while we were up there at the conference.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's very much what Mike and Debbie have put across to us, isn't it? That they are very family oriented, but you'll only see what they will allow you to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the case of our Bloomfield deal, we did have a family of them in that area because one of the people that talked to us was saying that a group of them would come into their cornfield and right up from the river. And this is the San Juan River in Bloomfield, New Mexico. So what they would do is they started to pick the corn and leave a pile of it near the river on top, right by the cornfield.
Mm-hmm.
These things would come up and they would eat the corn and leave the eaten husk there. They would also leave little gifts, so to speak, little rocks and things, in the place. And they said that was going on for a while until, as they put it, an alpha male showed up, and suddenly all that activity ceased, and
Mm-hmm.
the horses started to be attacked. Two of them died, and 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 the last one they sold, and they were. You could tell even several years later, they were still broken up over that because these were family horses. They were pets, and they said after that they didn't have horses anymore. The thing destroyed one of their sheds. If you can imagine a sheet of corrugated steel that this thing just literally took and ripped it in half. And, you can't do that. That steel is pretty tough. So, and then after that, it went away. They didn't have any more contact with it. But it was almost like this thing had come up and chastised this group. Don't make friends, leave it alone and stay away. So there is definitely some kind of hierarchy there, um, a pecking order, if you would.
There could be similar to the Native Americans have a council of elders, the oldest who there's a matriarch, a patriarch kind of type of leadership that they have. Um, and so they're probably protecting the species because a lot of people are now taking away their lands. One of the things that I got a call on is when Santa Fe had their fires recently of last year, when a fire destroyed quite a bit of acreage. The mayor had called or had reported to the news syndicate that they are seeing more sightings of Sasquatch in the area. Well, maybe their habitat is being destroyed, and so now they're making those appearances because they're trying to reclaim whatever their areas are, and whatever their habitat is, they're trying to see assess the damage. Possibly that could have been their home, you know locations and such. We're just
I, I
speculating here.
really, I really don't know. I'm going to throw out something else here. Um, what if the energy, frequency, and vibration are increasing in certain areas, and so it's allowing more uh, interdimensional transport, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
of these things, and we're seeing more and more of them as a result of that. I've often wondered because if you look at animals, and I can speak about cattle because I've had to deal with them for so long out here. If you watch cattle and you put them in a fenced area, I mean a big fenced area, you'll notice that they'll walk the perimeter of the fence every single day. There'll be a trail going around right by the fence. They're looking for an opening. Once they find any kind of an opening where that fence is down, they will exploit that and move through to get food on the other side where it's growing differently. And I kind of wonder sometimes if these portals are kind of like uh, they sense them, they can tell when they're there, and there's something here that maybe they don't get where they're at. Different types of food. It would be like, you're stepping over to this stand and they have cotton candy and you've never tried it before. And so now you develop a taste for it and you want to come back and get more of it. Uh, it's obviously it's supposition, but
Right, right.
we tend to think in terms of what we know and what we've been taught, uh, and we tend to filter things through a religious background. And what we're finding out is that these things have nothing to do with religion
Mhm.
as we know it today, but there is a spiritual sense that is a component along with science and a physics that we don't understand yet.
And maybe it's also with, I think one term I've heard is the thinning of the veil or the raising of consciousness, or as you were saying, Jonathan, frequency, harmony, and vibration increases and changes as our consciousness rises. Maybe these other realms are just more accessible to us. Maybe they are actually they're just there. They're right overlaid over us, and just as we see, ghosts or whatever from the astral, the other realms are becoming much more into our reality, or we're able to access them. Both ways it would work, couldn't it? They could access our reality and we could access theirs as frequency changes and becomes a greater match as we head towards like a unity consciousness thing, so that we're not all separate.
Well, it's like a kind of like knowing feeling, isn't it? Once you have spiritual experiences or like mystical experiences, you kind of understand that we're multidimensional, and there's a knowing that there is the other side. And when you have more different experiences, it's just a knowing, isn't it? It's like a knowing that there's another side, and once it becomes a knowingness, you have more different experiences. That's what I found anyway. It's like there's no separation now between the other side and this side now.
Yes.
Really fascinating.
Yeah,
Well,
we
with
have access
with
to
the
many
case of the Santa Fe, and I appreciate that Jonathan talked about the portals. Maybe they were because of their healing backgrounds. They're a higher vibrational, higher intelligence species that they were coming to assess the area because there are other living things that they could do to heal the land. That's a speculation right there, what I just said.
Yes.
There could be an assessment of how can we heal. And I know that up at the conference, that was one of the things they spoke about is they come and assess the area of the land that's being destroyed, or the Amazon is a good example of that, taking down the forest where living things live. And maybe they came to assess, I'm just speculating at this point, that how can we help heal that land, that had been just destroyed by a fire. I mean, we're speculating on this species, identifying to the human race that, we're here to help. That was acknowledged at the conference itself, is they're wanting to contact the humans, and are we ready for them? And so one of the speakers said, no, we're not. because we're not vibrating at that level. But those of us who want to see them, they seem to appear.
It's interesting as well because that made me think, Michelle, like a long time ago, the planet was it like 80% forest, wasn't it, at one point? Like where
Mm-hmm.
we're all living now at some point was forest, and obviously the Sasquatch must have had such a bigger area basically, and they've kind of been condensed with kind of like the Industrial Revolution and so on. That's interesting. It made me think about that.
Yeah, the
Well,
habitats are changed.
over a long period of time, I think we've lost a lot of abilities. Um, you look at things like remote viewing, deja vu. Um, this idea that you can dream something a year ahead of time and then sit there and watch it play out and realize that you've had this dream a year before. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we have the capacity, but what's happened in the past? If you were a dreamer and you're dreaming these things and basically prognosticating, what happens is that everybody starts looking down on you. Oh, uh, religion doesn't allow for that. It must be from the devil. You hear this kind of stuff. We're tied in to a system of moral values dictated by religion, and and then science tells us that's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're told by the scientists, we can't repeat it, so therefore it doesn't exist. And yet it happens. And then some people, they get good enough at it, they monetize it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to pay big bucks to to get them to do something for you, and
Or militarize it.
yeah, or militarize it
Mm-hmm.
because we want something that we can get one up on any perceived enemies, and it becomes very secret, compartmentalized investigations. And this is what happened with Skinwalker Ranch and other places that the government was investigating. All of those things, all the results of those investigations are locked down and not available to the public because they were done by contractors. So, you have this whole thing in the background. Um, we need to explore. We use very little of our brains, believe it or not. I've heard that it's like 10%. Um, and yet we have the capacity to do so much more. And we don't. We'd rather make war. We'd rather injure and steal from our fellow man. And I really think that sometimes these other entities can't have contact with us because we'd either contaminate them or we're so violent that we pin them to a board and make a collection out of them like we do with butterflies.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, last week when we were talking with Mike, the intent that came out was the intent of the heart, and it was all based on the frequency of love. That's where I think where the Sasquatch vibrates is that frequency of love. And we forget that our humanity is missing that right now, that mankind, we are not treating each other with high vibrational, community love. And we're at war with one another, and we're suspect of each other, and we don't trust one another. And I think that's the vibratory energy that's missing in our world today. And so nature creates that, and they're a part of nature. So the birds, that's why we feel so good when we go out to the forest, we go camping, we're out in nature, we're interacting. That's why it's feeding us back that energy that's been missing out of our daily lives. So that's the point I'm coming from.
Well,
yeah.
it's also
One,
that we need to connect to the Indigenous elders and all
yeah,
the lessons from the Indigenous elders.
Right, the knowledge.
why we're sat here now with you two and Stan. It's not just the paranormal, it's also what the indigenous have taught us and could teach us, because it's been so lost in a system that just wants to dominate, control, divide, introduce competition, introduce boundaries, have massive patriotism, create wars, everything you were saying, Jonathan. And the indigenous knew how to live with the earth. The rest of it, that the system set up is not living in alignment with the earth. So that's what we've lost touch with, isn't it?
Right.
That's what we've lost touch with. And when we bring in Bigfoot, they are showing us how to live with the natural earth energies, how to heal with the natural earth energies, be it the plants, whatever.
Well,
That's why
it's,
I think
I
they're so
wanted
important.
absolutely, Laura. And what's really interesting? Navajo said they do not show love, at least not in Upper Fruitland. So here's the thing I learned while we were up in Toronto, and I didn't realize this, that there are many species, because the question was asked from our panel, is there like one or two species? They said no, there are countless species. And so there might be different groups that have experienced different things like humans do. We become, exposed to certain negative energies or experiences in our lives. And so there may be groups out there that didn't have a positive experience and they're now in protective mode. And so when that was addressed while we were up at the conference, I was really like, that's just how the human race is sometimes too. These species are many.
And just to clarify something, and this is going to be my PSA, my public service announcement. As you explore consciousness, be careful. Um, I know somebody that was able to do remote viewing, uh, kind of out of body experience and traveling into the future and into the past. They did it
Mm-hmm.
on their own. They just learned it themselves. And they were actually able to go and even see how family members were going to pass eventually. And, but they wouldn't say. And at one point, they came back and saw their body laying in the bed with shadow figures all around it. And they could not get back to their body. And it shook them up so badly that when they finally did get in their body again, they swore off it and said, I'll never, never again do that. There are ways to be trained and knowledge on how to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to understand that there is a training. Even Native Americans use prayers and smudging and different things, different medicines to protect ourselves. And you just can't go into it nilly willy. And this is why, the paranormal rangers are always telling people, yeah, if you're going to go do these investigations, protect yourself. Have a method and a way of protecting your spirit. Because once you enter these realms with other vibrations and other frequencies, they can be hurtful. And, you know, maybe it's
There's
fun for a little while, but we don't want anyone going out there and getting hurt.
Mhm.
That's not cool.
Mm-mm.
there's something Andrew has said in the past which is spot on, where he goes, "Your level of awareness must meet your level of responsibility. So whatever you're aware of, you have to be responsible for it. So if you're aware of the other side, you've got to be responsible for it." Which I thought was incredible, and that stuck with me for years. That
And he also taught us, making something sacred. And as you're saying, Jonathan and Michelle, instilling that protection and the sacredness and your self sovereignty. And as Dale said, the responsibility. Otherwise, you are liable to be hijacked.
That's
As
right.
you say, yeah, as you were saying, with it can be, not at all comfortable. So
Yeah.
it's you. I think it's being careful. Paranormal is it's really exciting, and we have so many interesting stories. But I think you often remind us, Jonathan, quite rightly, that look at what you're dealing with. Look at with reverent, with respect, certainly, with a certain amount of protection, and also with possibly more of an open heart, more of a heart-based intention. The intention with which you go in and look at something is important too, which we can say, you can say that with Bigfoot. I think if you go in with the right, with unconditional love and respect for these beings, then, and you're trying to connect with them, then I think you're going to be a better match than if you're like, oh, we're going hunting Sasquatch, or we're doing this. That isn't what it's like. These are beings who live here or in another dimension on an equal basis with us, and I think that has to be respected.
Well,
Well,
there's a
it's really interesting. Someone once said to me is, I don't get into the woo-woo. This stuff is too woo-woo for me. And I said, do you know what woo-woo means interpretively? And they go, no. I go, it means spirit. And when we can tap into our own spirits and we're dealing with another species, whether it's a paranormal or an alien based or whatever these new words for describing the thing, that the phenomena, which we don't know how they identify themselves, that's how we have identified them. So when you start to tap into your spirit, raise your vibration, come from a place of love and intent, I think, and take responsibility to what John was saying, and be responsible for your own experience, and don't try to force the situation and harm yourself. And I think that's what, the message is woo woo means spirit. Be in your own spirit.
So there's a quick story what I want to add. So about 7 years ago, I had a lady come to one of my psychic surgery trainings, and she came to me for a session before, and she went to Scotland, and she went into a dungeon on her own, and she began to try and clear out this dungeon on her own, this huge castle and dungeon. And basically, she came to me heavily haunted, and she was suicidal. So she was attacked for 3 weeks after, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, you're gonna end up killing yourself." So that was a big teacher for me to see what can happen when you go and play with shit, what you shouldn't be playing with, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Recently, I watched a woman doing a healing using crystal, and she used a pendulum to determine where the injury was, and then she used a crystal to draw that negative energy out. And I'm sitting there, I'm curious, and I asked her, I says, what happens to that negative energy once it's drawn out into that crystal? And she says, oh, you have to clear it so that it changes the structure of the energy, so it becomes harmless. Now remember, energy can't be destroyed, but it can change state.
Mm-hmm.
So when we die, our energy goes somewhere. And, you know, it was kind of enlightening to me, because I've always wondered about that. I mean, I've just got a curious mind, and I could see that thing. I've actually seen a person go into a seizure for over a half hour. Usually seizures only last a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And this person had somebody get right in their face and be talking to them. They came out of the seizure. They were taken to the hospital. After that, they were fine. Like it never happened again. Doctors couldn't tell. They said it wasn't a seizure. So we started thinking independently that this might have been a possession.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that was in that person's face, that thing might have gone into that other person. And so, again, have some sort of protection. They may have gone home with something that they didn't want, and that's a little bit frightening. So, just lessons learned, things observed, um, and that's why we're always talking about safety. Safety is number one.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, we're at the top of the hour. Is there anything else you would like to share or say and address? Any more stories for the audience? Any questions answered need to be answered?
Well, no, Dale and I have only just begun our Bigfoot quest.
I
So
think
we've
that was a
been loving,
wonderful experience.
yeah, we're loving listening to Mike Patterson, who you had on last week, Michelle. What a wonderful source of information, and obviously Stan and John and everything they've come up with, and more recently our own experiences and yours and your wonderful friend Judy. And I think we've got Tom on. Did you say next week?
Yeah, we got Tom on, so we'll get
Yeah,
that one.
As
He is
well.
a gentle person. That man is very gentle himself. You'll
As,
enjoy it.
as
And
well.
thank you, everybody that tuned in. Uh, you know,
Absolutely.
To,
you're the one that makes us.
We just
and
have the experiences, right, John?
Yeah, we would be nothing without everybody out there.
And remember to subscribe, comment, and
yeah,
like. It really does help out with the algorithms as well of the show. We appreciate your support, and thank you guys. You're inspiring, all of you. Thank you.
yeah,
I want
lovely.
to
Thank
thank
you, Michelle, John. Thank
I
you,
want to
audience.
thank Andrew and everybody for being on this show today. Andrew has having weather issues, so that affects streaming, and so we would love to heard of his input. But he has some wonderful knowledge, as well as everybody on this panel. So have a great day, everybody, and a great week.